Brothers and sisters, misses and misters, jelly beans and family jeans, today's episode of the Dented Cast, we're going to talk about the F word. Not the one you're thinking about. Today's F word is father. Luke Skywalker, I am your father. Do you have a memory of your father? Of course you do, even if he's non-existent. Your father, everybody has a bond with their mother and their father. And it could be a good one, it could be a bad one. And we decided, Max and I, that our F word, father, is such a big topic, we're going to cut it up into chunks because we can't all do it in one episode. There's going to be a lot of pieces of this one. And I think we're going to start because Max's father was way worse than mine. We're going to start with Larry Bumgardner.
He was not way worse than you.
I'm kidding. And that's
No, I know that.
But that's the funny thing. We laugh about it is because, again, we say this often, shit is shit. Pig shit, horse shit, still shit. And we joke about it, but all we can do is laugh at this particular point because the damage is done and we're left to heal. And that's not something to joke about. And I know someone watching has had rotten fathers.
Father-son relationships especially are tricky, but father-daughter relationships are tricky. You said this when we were taping our show here a while back that, what did you say, that sometimes women marry their fathers and men marry their mothers?
Supposed to be, and to become their father and their mother, and now with so many gender issues, no wonder or Bruce Jenner is wearing a dress. You know, who knows what's inside of us all? I'm not judging it all, but it's very tough for a little kid to come along and you think your parents are Superman and Superwoman, or if they're the same sex, Superman and Superman 2, or whatever it is. You think and when you find out that they're dented cans too, or at least human and flawed, it's sometimes hard to deal with.
I'm dealing with a couple of things with my dad, and I want to come out. I feel differently about my dad than you felt about your dad. And that is, I had a relationship with him and lived with him off and on. The police were called on a few occasions.
I remember because I was the one that called the police. This poor man is getting assaulted by that young, rambunctious lad. First of all, I think it's very important, and I don't mean to be funny about this. Let's give our fathers a name. Your father's name?
Larry.
My dad's name was Russ. Because sometimes they can be seen as such an evil ogre that the human side, if there is one, and there always is one, is lost. And hopefully that helps, because it helped me when I was able to identify him with a name. And you didn't tell me your dad's name until after I knew you for a while, but I just always, Larry, my brother's name is Larry, so I have different thoughts when I think of Larry, but continue, please.
I loved him.
Because you were forced to? Because you naturally did?
Because I wanted to have a relationship with him. I loved him. Mm-hmm. And there's a part of me that still does love him. Okay?
I admire you for that.
Well, there's a part of me that still does. I loved him.
Mm-hmm. Is there still anger there?
Toward him?
Yes.
He's dead. He died in 2018.
It doesn't matter that there still could be anger there.
No, real recently, I've been talking to you about this. I'm not angry at him anymore. I loved my dad, and I hated my dad.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was the most abusive person in my life.
He's number one.
My dad was the biggest monster in my life, the biggest bully in my life. And I still loved him.
Kudos to you. My
dad taught me how to treat women improperly. My dad was a chronic alcoholic and didn't really accomplish anything in his life ever.
He helped in the making of you.
That was an accident that happened in the back seat of a car with a teenage girl.
He won the lottery. I mean that very sincerely.
Oh.
I'm not this sappy or anything. We bust each other's balls.
We do.
You're a great guy, man. You're a great human being, and you haven't just helped me. I could tell from the first day on the loop that you got soul, man.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people do. And sometimes I think that coming through your pile of shit, like I've come through mine, the soul was already there. That tempered it like steel. And I really think that Larry, whether he knows it or not, created a positive monster. And monster is probably not the word I'm trying to use, but the bad he did was way outdone by the good you have done. And I really think he's too dumb to be proud of that.
Yeah, maybe. I just have to level set a couple of things.
Okay?
All right. Number one, I don't know. Do you remember Dr. Laura Schlesinger?
Absolutely.
She said something years ago when she still had a radio program, when people still could tolerate her bitchiness. She said something years ago that was really profound to me. Mm-hmm. She said, you get 2 chances at a parent-child relationship. Your job is to not screw at least one of them up. Okay? Mm-hmm. And I can sit here today on this camera in front of ones of people thank you both for watching, by the way, that I screwed them both up. One of them was not my, when you're the kid, you don't really have control of that. You only have control after you reach a certain age and can build boundaries around yourself. My daughter taught me that. But when you're the father, that is 100% your responsibility. 100% your responsibility. It's not circumstance. It's not how you were raised. Your job is to lead. And I failed. I've got great kids. Great kids.
I will second that.
I credit God with that. I really do, Dobie. I credit God with that. That was not me. That was not me. I maybe have put a couple of ingredients in the stew or in the pot, but it was not me that got them to where they are today. And I do praise God. I know you're very respectful of my beliefs. You don't have the same ones. A lot of people watching might not have the same ones, and I'm not going to push that on everybody. I'm just saying for me,
amen.
It's real. Mm-hmm. It's real.
Gotcha.
So I'll get back to my dad in a minute. A father's job is to keep the family safe.
Okay.
I didn't feel that with my dad. A father's job is to provide like financial freedom, resources, make sure our needs are met, right?
Yes.
I didn't feel that when we were living in housing, when he was out at the bars buying rounds. I didn't feel that, right?
Right.
I can feel right now how resentful I am just saying that, just how self-centered he was. A father's supposed to set examples of good behavior in all circumstances. So when all hell's breaking loose, when you're a little guy, like we both were, you want to look to your father for guidance, right?
Right.
You want that to be kind of right here instead of just chaotic release of emotion.
What about when your father is the cause of the chaotic release of emotion?
Exactly.
He's supposed to be on your side. It's like being in battle and your person turns around the gun and starts shooting at you.
Right. And I've been on both sides of that.
Okay.
I've been the dad who was in the wrong because I'm having a bad day or being in emotion or dealing with a renter, or whatever the excuse was. It was always wrong. And my kids, to their credit, told me. We recently had a talk. My daughter sat us down and talked to us. And she did it as an adult. She's 22 at the time of this taping, studying to be a psychologist. Could not love her or my son anymore. I would give my life for them in a second.
I'm going to stop you right there.
Okay.
Do you think Larry Bumgardner loved little Max?
I think he liked the idea of a cute, any kid, not just me, but of a kid idolizing him. I think he liked having fans.
So it was about him. It wasn't about you.
I think it was always about him. And since we're talking about him, yeah, I'll get, like I said, I'll circle back. A father's supposed to be present and happily offer their time.
Yes.
Right? To the kid.
Correct.
Kids can be a lot of work sometimes. I know you haven't had any, but I know that you have nieces and nephews and you've had, my kids grew up, with you part of our lives. It's hard sometimes to be a parent. And I feel for
I feel for
single parents too. And there are times where you just want to look at the kid and say, would you please just shut your mouth, you know? Mm-hmm. But I remember with my son, when he started talking late. He was like 3 years old when he started talking. He didn't talk at all. And there was a lot of diagnoses flying around, and, you know, he's going to be in a home, and, you know, all these sort of things. And when he started talking, he was talking in full sentences.
Father, would you mind passing the butter?
Right.
My broccoli is a bit dry.
It was incredible. It was just incredible.
Yeah.
And then he didn't stop talking. So he asked questions about everything.
Sure. Okay.
Even then, in my mind, I answered the questions about everything. I was able to catch it at that point and answer his questions.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I did, because I can't go back and redo that, you know? So I did. And people would just be like, oh, my God. And I was like, that's how he's building his deck.
Sure.
You know? He needs the answers. I don't feel like you got that from your dad. In fact, I know you didn't.
No.
I know I didn't get that from my dad. When I was a kid, the living room would be filled with smoke. You could see the layer like a wall, a half wall in the living room. Whatever television show was playing on the TV was something he wanted to watch. Never something we wanted to watch or I wanted to watch. I mean, my dad, I remember one time I was really scared. I was 7 years old. I'll never forget this. This is an example of my dad. The show Night Gallery. Do you remember that?
I do. Rod Serling's Night Gallery terrified me as a young boy.
Me too.
Yeah.
And I didn't know Rod Serling was that. I thought that was Twilight Zone. But I mean,
he did that Night Gallery as well.
He did Night Gallery too?
Absolutely true.
It terrified you too?
Oh my gosh, yes.
My dad knew it terrified me. And the type of dad that I had who thought it was funny is he held me one time on him and turned it up really loud and made me watch it with him.
Yeah. Ha ha ha.
He thought that was hilarious. You know?
Yeah, that's frightening.
Well, when you're 7.
That's abuse.
So, anyway, you know, a dad's supposed to model conflict. Supposed to model goal setting. My dad didn't have any goals. Maybe screw somebody else's wife. That worked for him, too. He got that done. Civic duty, charity. None of those things were even part of his vocabulary, let alone did he practice those things. Wasn't reliable, wasn't committed. So those are me being judgmental of my father. Okay.
I think it's just being observational of your father.
Well, okay, but like when we get to Russ, your dad had a Jesus sticker on his bumper, and we'll get to that. Very well liked in the community. Brother Russ.
Brother Russ.
Right. But at home, would beat the shit out of all of you guys.
Absolutely, including the dog.
So hopefully what people get out of this is, like you identified, Dobie, this is not talked about.
No.
And anytime we've been on the radio, whatever city we've been in, and we get into this, I remember the phones used to go crazy. And that's how, at the time, when, you know, radio, a lot of people say, I don't listen to the radio anymore. And by the way, if you have people not listening to your radio station and want a couple of great hosts, contact us.
We don't work cheap. Those days are over. You had your discount. The window is closed. It's going to be top dollar, and you're going to move us too. Hello, Peoria.
But usually the program director or the radio station management, the management staff would say, hey, especially for you, Dobie, nobody wants to hear that. You just be funny, buddy. You just be funny. No one wants to see the clown cry.
Yeah, totally right.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely true.
Because you're a comic, and you are very good at that.
Well, that's really nice of you, but I think that's a whole other episode we'll talk
Right.
about. But how comedy masks the pain and the Larrys and the Russes of the world, and we think it's going to make it go away. It doesn't. It might put it aside for a while, but it's still there. This is lancing the boil.
Right.
Popping the pimple and letting the pus drain out, because what comes after that, it might be painful to do that, healing. That's the H word.
Yeah.
But
And
I'm
we'll
saying,
get to
this
that.
is the thing. And I want to just ask you one thing, and I don't mean to take you off your list, but I want to, because I think this is very important for everybody watching too. are listening, what was your first memories and impressions of Larry? How young were you? What do you remember?
I idolized him. He was everything to me. Mm-hmm. You know, when you're a little kid, you put trust in that person. I've never felt emotionally safe in my life until recently. Mm-hmm. I haven't.
Okay.
I have a very small group of people that I'm intimate with. You're in that circle, obviously, you know, but I have very small. I'm very guarded. You know, you're thinking something funny. Go ahead. So.
No, I was gonna say he pays me to be in that inner circle, and the last check bounced. No.
I have a very small group of people.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up because I think, you know, a lot of times people in any walk of life put on the happy face, but then when they go home, they drink, they drugs, whatever it is to mask it.
What people saw in my dad is he was the life of the party. You use humor not only as a way to make a living, but to diffuse your pain. Mm-hmm. You've said it before, and like you said, we'll get into that when we talk about humor.
Yes.
And comedy and comedians and that whole business, because you've got, again, we could go on and on and on. I would just be listening, obviously, to your stories. But my dad could light up a room. Mm-hmm. And even somebody that's going to be his friend that maybe is watching this right now would be like, oh my gosh, that's not Bummy. Bummy was great. He was awesome. What a great man. Mm-hmm. You know?
How many times have you heard this? Max, you are sure lucky to have Larry as your father.
Well, something similar, but yeah.
But I'm saying,
you heard that with God, Russ from somebody from the church, right?
Oh, Brother Russ. Must be great to be Brother Russ's kid.
Right. And I know we're touching a nerve right now because there's so many people out there.
Yeah.
And first of all, I was not a great dad to my kids. I'll say it right on camera. I've said it to them many times. I was not a great dad. I was a better dad than what I had. And my kids always had their basic needs met and got to live a much better life than I got to live with material things. But they didn't feel emotionally safe either.
I'm surprised that you say that, and I don't doubt it. But at the time when your kids were little, we worked together.
Right.
And I was very fond and still am of both your kids and your wife. There's just, and again, there are people, by looking at them thinking, that is a great family. I remember sitting with your son at Soldier Field at the despised Chicago Bears stadium. Green Bay Packers fan. But to see him and you have that father-son moment, and I got the chance to hang out, was a wonderful memory to this day for me. I'm not even in your family. So I saw a lot of good things. Maybe necessarily you didn't, but from the outside, it looks like you did a great job.
And I thank you, and I didn't. You know, luckily, I did some things right. Mm-hmm. In spite of not having a guide in my dad. You know, but let's give him credit. He's not here to defend himself. He's dead. So what did he do right? You know, there's a few things, right?
Okay.
He could shotgun a beer like nobody.
Okay.
He could pack a one-hitter and not waste any of it. Mm-hmm. He could get the hash back out and reuse it for another high at a later date. Let's talk about the funny things my dad did, okay?
Okay.
Because there's a part of me, like I said in the beginning of this episode, I still love him. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah.
For instance, here's some of his wisdom. When he would have friends come over, and we always lived in a shitty apartment, you know. My dad made great money, but he wasn't great with the money, right? Mm-hmm. Got paid once a week, it was gone the next day.
Sure.
Gone, you know?
Yeah.
No investing, none of that kind of stuff. That's all that's all horse shit. You don't need to do any of that.
Yeah.
You know, live for the moment.
Because he's buying scratch-offs. That was his
right.
retirement plan.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah. So I remember one time he told me, he said, hey, when my friends come over, I need you to go to your room. Because if a judge ever asks you if you saw me smoke pot, you'll be able to honestly tell them, no, Your Honor, I have not. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Get that from Perry Mason.
Yeah, well, that's what I was dealing with. Mm-hmm. And I'll say this also. I felt like I was more aware than him I don't want to say smarter, even though I was, more aware than him at a very young age. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Almost
exactly.
like, wow, I'm being raised by a kid.
Yeah.
I'm being raised by what would be a shitty older brother as opposed to a father.
Yeah.
Because my father figure, much like you, was my grandfather on my mother's side, who was a Marine.
Okay. A lot of hugs there.
Well, a lot of honor there.
Yeah. I'm not making fun of Marines.
No,
but
no,
I'm saying
no, but
they can tend to be tough.
Yeah. Oh, he was. Yeah.
Make you do push-ups.
No, but I know how to cut grass in a straight line. Because the very first time wasn't cutting it in a straight line, I got drugged by my ear over to the straight line and said, "Do you see that line? Keep it straight."
Sir.
Never have forgot that. Okay?
Okay.
But he was more of a father to me than my own father was.
Okay.
Just like you.
Was that his father?
No.
Or it was mom's
maternal.
father.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
His father died in his arms. His father, and see, that's interesting you say that because we are all human beings.
Most of us.
Right. We're all human beings. And for me to sit here and judge anybody would be wrong. And I don't ever want to come off like that. Hopefully I haven't, even in this episode.
No.
I don't want to come off like that. But I would like to be able to have, maybe there is a dad who's got little kids, who's a total screw up, who's living at the bars, and his kids, he's not emotionally available to his kids. They don't feel safe around him emotionally. And is about ready to get a divorce, just a pile of dung. Hopefully that guy's watching right now.
He's probably turned it off saying, they're not talking about me.
Right. Well, that's it.
But your kids do. That's the thing. A lot of times what your kids see in you and what you... My father had no clue that he did wrong.
Right.
And I talked to your dad when we were on the radio one time. We did a phone interview. I don't remember what it was about. And Max's dad is on the phone. And I'm thinking, and I don't mean any disrespect, this guy's an asshole. I really thought that. And I could just tell that everything you said was true because I said the same vibe that I got from my own father. And you were trying so hard to be nice, and he was just shooting everything down that all of us said.
He was not emotionally developed. He never got there. Never got there. Something happened. I don't know what. He was not educated. To me, that's the biggest difference in society is educated and not non-educated.
Would you agree, though, that street smart sometimes can have an effect on that? Someone has never gone to school in their lives, but they're with it. They're sharp. They get it.
Yeah, I do. But
He didn't.
I think there's a component of awareness there, too.
Yeah. Did your father finish high school?
No.
Mine did not. My mother did not either.
Yeah. No. I was the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the first one to get a bachelor's degree. And to his credit, he was there. I'll never forget. He was so happy. It was I didn't go back to college till I was in my mid-30s to finish that degree. It was that important to me. Right before we started working together in Chicago.
Correct.
And I'll never forget him standing up in this big civic auditorium yelling at the top of his lungs, Max! Max! Because he was so proud.
Okay.
That's good.
How does that make you feel?
I'm glad he was happy.
Okay.
It was hard work, and he didn't pay for it.
Yeah, right. That's my boy.
Right. That's okay. If that made him feel good, great. That's great.
Sure.
That's great. So I am not mad at him anymore. I believe that this is a test, this life, without getting too religious and getting out the Bible and shoving that down everybody's throat. I truly believe what we're doing here is a test.
Well, I'm flunking. Sometimes. I think we all do. That's why the show exists, because we stumble, we see no reason for a while, and without judging anybody, sometimes you just need a hug. Okay, I feel that way too. I get you.
If my dad would have, from a very young age, not scared the hell out of me with wild eyes and veins popping out of his neck, threatening to beat my ass,
Or worse.
yeah, then I guess things would have been a little different.
Would have been a lot different.
Yeah. And so I don't know what else to say about my dad other than I hope that he's resting in peace, and that I hope the story that him and I had can inspire someone else on what not to do.
Were there any happy memories with you and your dad, Larry?
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
Could we hear a couple?
Yeah. He was very funny. Very funny. I mean, really, really funny. And just the same sort of abusive way that your dad was. He would always go for the malady, but he was hilarious,
Mm-hmm. If it wasn't pointed at you.
No. But I mean, there were times where it's like, I can't believe you just said that, and you're dying inside. Mm-hmm. Like I said, he was a blast. He really was a lot of fun. Okay. Mm-hmm. But then there was day 2.
Sure. And you had to go home with him.
Yeah.
Now, do you think he had a good childhood?
No. And we started to talk about that and got off track. Sorry about that. His dad was raised by a man who was very successful right before the Depression. And they had a gravel truck company over in Iowa.
Okay.
The Depression hit, wiped him out. Mm-hmm. So his dad, who I'm named after, went from living a very privileged life to penniless, and it wrecked him.
Wrecked him psychologically. Wrecked
Psychologically.
Him as a person?
Plus, he was a small guy in stature.
Mm-hmm.
He was an alcoholic, horrible alcoholic. Really smart, really bright guy.
Not that there's a good alcoholic. My dad was an alcoholic, but he was a good one.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Yeah, he did it. He drank a lot, but he ate his vitamins.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So he was 43 when my dad was born. My dad just wanted to be valued. We all want to be valued. We all want to be valued. All of us do, right? You get your value on stage in front of people that you're making laugh so hard till they cry. That I know how that feels.
Drunks who got a free ticket out of the Thrifty Nickel Shopper.
Still feels good when you make the night.
It does. But a lot of times you think you have these raw emotions and you want to just please these people. And like you just said, you want to be one. It's like, yeah, you were pretty funny. What's your name again? How come I never heard of you? My fries were cold. Okay. So, yes, I want to stress that.
Are you a comedian because you didn't get valued by your dad?
Max, I didn't know that for decades after I was into it. And yes. And when I came to that painful realization, I began to heal and go in another direction, and I no longer care if I ever do comedy again because I have healed that hole that I thought comedy would fix.
Awesome. Well, that's why I got on the radio years ago.
Absolutely.
And I don't care if we don't get a job ever again in radio. It doesn't matter to me.
It led to this, as corny as that sounds.
Yeah.
Your experiences and my experiences led to this. Being the ninth caller to pick up a CD is fine. And the radio is a background thing, and radio's cool, but this is real stuff that we'd never be able to talk about on a real radio station.
No.
We're going to do more good with this
That's right.
cast than we ever will in radio.
Dad, if you can hear this, I still love you. I wish things would have been different between us. And Dad, if there is a way that you could help get this message to as many fathers out there that need the help, please do that. I forgive you once again.
To end this episode, Max and I said when we started this Dented Cast that we were going to close on a positive, and we're going to do that. This is pretty hard one. To pick the peanuts out of this giant moose turd is not an easy thing to do. But if you're a football fan and you're a sports fan, there's a gentleman named Bart Starr, who's one of the great quarterbacks of the 1960s. If you're under 40, if you're over 40, you know who Bart Starr was. He was an all-star and a Hall of Famer. And Bart Starr in Wisconsin, where I grew up, there was Jesus, Mary, Joseph, and Bart Bart Starr. He was a royalty, and he always was a class act. He was wouldn't swear. He was a coach of the Packers. He was a Super Bowl winner. He was a big-time dented can. I read his autobiography and did not expect to get what I get. He grew up in the South, and his father was an ogre and a mean ranter and a raver. And Bart Starr had an older brother, and the older brother was the one that just did all the things exactly like the dad. They had the same personality as the dad. And in his teens, Bart's older brother stepped on, I believe it was a nail, and he got an infection in his leg and died. And Bart Starr said his father would say, when he's trying to play sports and impress his father, well, your brother wouldn't do it that way. Well, that's not how your brother would do it. You just don't have it. And he went to school, and everything was to please his father. And it wasn't until he won the very first Super Bowl. It was called, I don't think it was called the Super Bowl yet, but it was the championship of all of football. Bart Starr said in the book, and it was right near the end, it said, my father came over and gave me a hug and said, I was wrong, son. And he said that just changed his whole life and made it all worthwhile. And just because you're obscure and nobody knows you does not mean that your pain is not important. And just because you're rich and famous and a household name does not mean that you don't have dents in your can. This show, to a certain degree, is for everybody. And this is when Max's turn today, and Larry, and he forgave his father. And that's not something I'm able to do yet. So I admire Max. I thank you for watching. We'll be back with the Dented Cast once again.